I started composing late in high school at the recommendation of my music teacher. And it wasn't until I was in year 12 actually that I made a choice to do piano studies, but to also do composing and arranging, which was a subject which was offered at SACE at the time, where I could focus one of my subjects just on creating a folio of works. And that was the first time really that I intentionally sort of sat down and started writing music of my own. That I always had other people playing my music. So the music teacher that encouraged me to start composing, he was getting performers, getting fellow students to play through our compositions, which was just such an important part of seeing the role that composition takes, that it's not just about sort of an individual exercise where you're there with your manuscript and putting stuff down on paper. It is collaborative in that you put your ideas down and then you hand it over to someone else to bring it to life.
And so talking about that collaborative approach, you had a long history with the Zephyr Quartet. So am I right? Did you go to university with those guys and connect with them there? Is that where the relationship started?
Yes, yes. So the founding members of the Zephyr Quartet were all at uni when I was there. They were a year or two above me. And the connection was made through my composition at the teacher at the time, Graham Dudley, because Zephyr formed out of the string players who were in his new music ensemble, which he conducted. And I was a first year composition student, and he encouraged all of his students to write for the new music ensemble. So I wrote for the larger group and then got to know the Zephyrs through that because they formed the string section.
How different is it when you're writing for a musician that you know? Is that different from writing for musicians that you don't know or just kind of writing music with nobody in mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think sometimes it can be different, but it doesn't have to be. Uh, it probably depends more upon the reason or the rationale for the commission. So when knowing the knowing the performers does change the process, I think it's often because I'm approached by them wanting a particular kind of thing. So it might be, here is a program, here is a concert that we're putting on, and we want a piece that fits into this program in this particular way. I guess by knowing the people that you're writing for, you just have more opportunity to engage in a conversation about what the resultant work might be. And as a composer, you certainly feel a lot less left to your own devices in a way, in that you can check in with them and show them things if you're game to when they're half finished, and to ask them to play things through or to ask advice on certain aspects of the work.
And from your early days as a composer at university, fast forward to now, where you're becoming to be quite a prolific Australian composer, how is can you identify a change in your own voice? And if so, how and why does that occur?
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I think when I look back on earlier pieces and compare it to how I write now, I see a lot more similarities than I do differences. I know the things that I really like to get fixated on, changing meters or sort of different modal approaches to harmony. I was playing around with those back in early university years as much as I do now. I hope that means I'm not just writing the same couple of pieces over and over again. I don't believe that it does, but I do think that there's a through line or more of a consistency in my style, maybe a refinement.
Well, I mean, I know that whenever I play the game, when I've turned on the radio and try and guess the composer, every composer has an identifiable voice throughout their life. Obviously, some composers change more than others.
Mm.
I I'm interested with with your work that we're playing at the moment in Spaces Between, which is about, those precious moments of creativity that you have in between the freneticism of just existing as a human being and as a mum and working and so forth. Um, can you tell us a little bit about, that struggle that can happen sometimes to sort of to get the creative aspect of your life happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think it's really important for all composers to work out how they work best. And there's no right or wrong way of working, but there is more often than not something that works for you as an individual. And what I have learnt over the years is that I need, particularly in the early stages of a project, I need long chunks of uninterrupted time. And when you're a mother, when you work from home, when you share your house with other people, that's sometimes a real challenge. You have to be very intentional about it. You have to be really clear on what boundaries are important for you. Yeah, in Spaces Between, I was reflecting on that feeling of trying to cram things into the gaps. And it, I have written like that. I have worked like that. It saps it of a bit of the joy, I think. You lose the opportunity to get into the flow and to get into that feeling of getting really excited about what's happening with the piece and what's around the corner. It just feels a bit too pressured and too tightly wound. So it's, yeah, certainly not my preferred way of working.
Do you know what's ironic with that is that in Spaces Between, it's it's a piece that when you listen to it, feels like it gives you that time, and I think it's, so from a listener, when we listen to it, we feel like you're giving us the gift of taking
Mm.
time out to process. So I find it ironic that whereas you found it sort of pressured and kind of hard work, the result was something insanely beautiful and giving people that gift of reflection and time.
Thank you, Zoe. That's so lovely to hear. Yeah, that is a little bit ironic, isn't it? I remember when I was writing it, like I think I just got a little bit too wound up in the whole thing. And anyway, the result has done its job. So look, that's the important thing at the end of the day, isn't it?
Are you able to let us know where's your inspiration coming from these days?
Oh, these days, look, all over the place. Part of my process for every commission that I write is to dig into other works, usually the same instrument combination, and sort of do a broad listening. And then pick a few that stand out to me at that particular point in time. So with In Spaces Between, I completely fell in love with Caroline Shaw's string quartet Entourage. I I hope it's not overly obvious in what came out with the music. There's obviously some textures and things there that I have taken from her piece. So,
Well, you're certainly not the first great composer to have done that. Mendelssohn's Opus 13, his A minor, was directly related to Beethoven's Opus 132, and they're both, obviously they're both phenomenal pieces. So it's certainly you're certainly not the the first
oh no, not at all. All us
to have done that.
composers are
Yeah.
either borrowing or stealing or yeah, copying badly so that
No.
it sounds like us and not like them.
Well, and I can't wait for our audience to hear In Spaces Between. Obviously, we discovered it as part of the Ascend program, and we fell in love with it so much that we decided to connect it to this next program with Amy Beach and Dvorak. What are you writing at the moment?
What am I writing? I have literally, like just this afternoon, I'm starting the research phase. I'm writing a piece for Lorena Gore and the Seraphim Piano Trio. So yeah, it's happening here in Adelaide in July. So I need to get cracking with that one, don't I? But I've just finished. I just finished another piano trio for the Lyrebird Trio, which is being premiered in a fortnight's time for the Coriol Music Festival here in South Australia. And my other big project recently finished off is a marimba concerto, Dare to Declare, which Claire Edwards and the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra will be premiering in July. So very excited about all of those things.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great to hear that you're doing so well, Anne, and looking forward to this piece and everything else that you're writing at the moment. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks, Zoe.